Imagine a gallery of shadows. The National Crime Agency's annual Most Wanted list is typically a grim catalogue of the underworld's most hardened figures, career enforcers, grand thieves, and individuals associated with severe acts of aggression. It is a roster almost exclusively dominated by men. But in 2022, amidst the mugshots of brute force, one face stood out like a glitch in the system. Piercing blue eyes, a composed expression, and the faintest ghost of a confident smile. This wasn't the face of a desperate outlaw. It was the face of a highly educated, wealthy woman who had successfully evaded international authorities for nearly a decade. Her name was Sarah Panitzki. For 7 long years, she was the only female fugitive on Britain's most critical watch list. But to understand how a woman with such a polished exterior ended up as a priority target for Spanish and British intelligence, we have to look past the mugshot and rewind to a life that was, by all appearances, flawless. Sarah's story didn't begin in a criminal underworld. It started in the manicured tranquility of Escrick, a picturesque village nestled in North Yorkshire. By all accounts, she was the golden child of a family that possessed both wealth and social standing. Her parents, Leo and Paula, provided a life of immense privilege. There were no red flags, no early signs of rebellion. Sarah attended the region's most prestigious institutions, including York College for Girls and St. Peter's Schoollight establishments, where current tuition fees can soar north of £19,000 a year. She was bright, ambitious, and seemingly destined for legitimate success, eventually earning a master's degree in business management from a university in Barcelona. Her home life was the envy of her peers. The Panitzki household was a hub of social activity, so relaxed and welcoming that her parents constructed a fully equipped bar and entertainment center at the bottom of the garden. Just so Sarah and her friends had a sanctuary to unwind. It was a childhood defined by trust and transparency. She didn't need to hide anything because she had everything. However, the foundation of this idyllic existence was far more fragile than anyone realized. The turning point arrived abruptly when Sarah was just 19. The illusion of security was shattered, not by her own actions, but by the man she admired most. Her father, a successful property developer and insurance broker, found himself at the center of a severe investigation involving the manipulation of council property sales for significant profit. The legal consequences were swift. Leo was found guilty and sentenced to 4 years in custody. Overnight, the golden cage collapsed. While her peers were enjoying their university years, Sarah's life contracted into a grueling routine of long-distance travel and prison visits. She shuttled between Manchester and York, sacrificing her social life and her academic focus to support her mother during the family's darkest hour. It was a traumatic disruption that arguably rewired her perspective on authority and finance. When her father was finally released, Sarah sought an escape. At 25, she packed her bags for Spain, desperate for a fresh start. But somewhere in the transit between the grey skies of Yorkshire and the sun-drenched streets of Barcelona, the promising business student made a fatal choice. She didn't just leave the country, she was about to step into a shadow economy that would make her father's mistakes look microscopic. The Barcelona sun offered a perfect backdrop for reinvention. But Sarah didn't merely start over. She leveled up into a game of high-stakes deception. She became a key architect in a syndicate that would eventually siphon an eye-watering £1 billion from the British public purse. This wasn't petty theft. It was one of the most sophisticated tax exploits in history. At the helm of this operation was Geoffrey Johnson, a 78-year-old mastermind from Scotland, who had quietly assembled a team of 18 individuals from every corner of the UK: Cheshire, Sussex, Manchester, North Wales. It was a geographically scattered network, yet perfectly synchronized. The mechanism of their scheme was elegantly simple, yet devastatingly effective. It was known as missing trader fraud. The group would import small, high-value electronics, specifically mobile phones, from EU countries tax-free. They would then sell these devices within the UK at a markup that included the standard value-added tax. But instead of remitting that tax revenue to the government, the company would simply vanish, pocketing the difference. To the outside observer, it looked like legitimate commerce. In reality, it was a financial mirage. They repeated this cycle thousands of times. At the height of their activity, the group was buying and selling more mobile phones in a single month than all legitimate retailers in the entire country combined. Sarah Panitzki was far more than a passive participant. She was the engine room. While others moved the physical goods, Sarah moved the wealth. She traveled extensively to Dubai, Spain, and Andorra, managing a labyrinth of company accounts and utilizing masked IP addresses to orchestrate transfers remotely. She was the digital ghost in the machine, ensuring the illicit proceeds were washed clean and redistributed before authorities could trace the source. While the British taxpayer was unknowingly funding this operation, Sarah was living a life of sun-soaked luxury. She secured a residence in an exclusive gated community near Vilanova i la Geltrú, a coastal paradise just south of Barcelona. Her days were spent overlooking the Mediterranean from her private terrace, or driving her Mercedes CL 500 to the resort town of Sitges. To maintain the facade of a normal expatriate life, she held cover jobs in hospitality, and even worked at a tennis academy. To her neighbors, she was just another successful professional, enjoying the Spanish climate. But behind closed doors, she was managing an empire of deceit. The cracks in the facade began to appear in the summer of 2005. Financial investigators noticed irregularities, massive sums of liquidity flowing into accounts in Hong Kong, Switzerland, and the US. This triggered Operation Vultar, a painstaking 21-month investigation that culminated in synchronized raids across the UK in September 2007. Sarah, like her co-conspirators, maintained her innocence. But as the legal walls began to close in, she made a calculation. In May 2013, midway through her trial at Kingston Crown Court, Sarah Panitzki did what she did best. She disappeared. She fled to Spain, vanishing into the landscape she knew so well. In her absence, the gavel fell. On August 22, 2013, she was sentenced to 8 years in custody, while her 17 partners received a combined total of 135 years. She was now a fugitive, the only woman on the National Crime Agency's Most Wanted list, a title she would hold for the next 7 years. Sarah Panitzki was now a ghost. 7 years. For 7 years, the National Crime Agency plastered her passport photo on every possible channel, a woman staring innocently at the camera, completely oblivious to the manhunt closing in. But she had friends, and more importantly, she had money. The Spanish police were called in to assist, and by 2015 they had pinpointed her location to Olivella, a town just outside Barcelona that was a magnet for wealthy British expatriates. The surveillance was relentless. Officers watching the property noted that Panitzki rarely left her home. She was entirely dependent on her husband for weekly visits, relying on him to deliver food and supplies, while remaining completely undetected. The police prepared for a synchronized takedown, confident they had finally cornered her. But during the operation, Sarah somehow sensed the trap. Whether it was a tip-off or sheer instinct, she completely altered her appearance, donned a disguise, and slipped through the net. The fact that she evaded capture a second time is a testament to her desperation and resourcefulness. From that moment on, she became the singular focus of the investigation. Authorities scrutinized every contact, every transaction, every movement. They discovered she had severed all in-person ties with her family in Spain to remain hidden. Sadly, her father, Leo, passed away from natural causes during the UK's first lockdown on April 22, 2020. But even the death of the man whose imprisonment had shattered her world wasn't enough to draw Sarah out of hiding. She had become so adept at evasion that even grief couldn't compromise her security. The frustration among investigators was palpable. In 2019, after 6 years of fruitless searching, they even appealed to British tourists for assistance. What they didn't know was that she had relocated to the small town of Santa Barbara the very same year she escaped from Olivella. She moved into an apartment building with a small pool and views of the beautiful national park. She created a completely new identity. On her mailbox was the name Maria Antonietta. In February 2022, detectives finally received a breakthrough tip that she might be in Santa Barbara, a quiet town of about 4,000 people in Tarragona province. Police carefully monitored a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Panitzki. She lived in an apartment building on the edge of town. Remembering the 2015 escape, a large team of undercover officers established a constant surveillance operation that lasted several weeks. Panitzki followed a rigid routine. She only left her 3-bedroom apartment to swim in the building's small pool during the afternoon siesta, visit the grocery store, or walk her dogs twice a day. She was incredibly cautious. Neighbors later remarked, "We thought she was strange." Everyone in town knew each other, but Sarah avoided people. Life had become difficult. The stolen millions had dwindled. When her washing machine broke, she was visibly distraught because she couldn't afford the repairs. She never spoke of her past life in England, and rarely communicated with her family, save for a single video call during the Christmas lockdown that year. Panitzki attempted to generate income by selling knitted items and cross-stitch, but the venture failed. She crafted beautiful bags and tried to sell them to a local shop owner, but he declined. Panitzki would visit neighbors for tea, but almost never allowed anyone into her apartment. The few who did see inside would later describe it as completely empty, as if someone had just moved in. She possessed expensive clothing, which was bizarre for someone who never went out and claimed poverty. The mystery of the strange neighbor was about to be solved. On Sunday, February 27, 2022, the residents of Santa Barbara witnessed a spectacle that shattered their quiet routine. An elite team from Madrid, coordinating with UK tax investigators, descended upon the town. They located Maria walking her dogs just 500 yards from her front door. There was no dramatic chase this time, no last-minute disguise. Officers approached her calmly, and within moments, Sarah Panitzki, most elusive fugitive, was taken into custody. In her possession, they found a fake Italian ID under the name Antonietta Aguilo, a document she had used to navigate her shadowy existence for 7 years. The net had finally closed. Sarah was the last member of the 18-person gang to be apprehended. Her former boss, Jeffrey Johnson, had been arrested in Dubai back in 2017 and was already serving a 24-year sentence. With Sarah's capture, the circle was complete. However, the legal saga was far from over. When she appeared at Kingston Crown Court in June 2022, the reality of her situation took a grim turn. The judge confirmed that her original 8-year sentence from 2013 still stood. Technically, she could be eligible for release after serving just 4 years, given the time she had spent in Spanish custody awaiting extradition. But there was a massive caveat attached to her freedom. The court ordered her to repay $2,455,913 within 3 months. Failure to do so would result in an additional 9 years being added to her sentence. Unsurprisingly, the money was gone. On March 24, 2023, at the City of London Magistrates Court, the additional 9-year term was triggered, bringing her total sentence to 17 years. The financial penalty didn't stop there. The debt continues to accrue interest at a staggering rate of $538 every single day. By February 2023, the total owed had ballooned to $3.78 million. As of today, in 2025, it has surpassed $4 million and continues to climb. This is a debt that will likely follow her for the rest of her life, a permanent reminder of the fortune she once controlled but never truly owned. Beyond the headlines and the staggering figures, the true cost of Sarah's choices is measured in human loss. When news of her capture broke, her mother, Paula Panitzki, offered a brief, heartbreaking statement from her home in Market Weighton. "At least I know she is safe and well. But otherwise, I have no comment." It was the first time she had received confirmation of her daughter's well-being in a decade. Sarah's brother, Leon, described the entire ordeal as incredibly difficult for the family, Her father, Leo, had told the press in 2016 that while the situation was a shock, he had accepted he would never see his daughter again. He died during the lockdown, without ever speaking to her one last time. Sarah Panitzki's story is a modern tragedy of wasted potential. A woman who had everything: education, wealth, and opportunity, traded it all for a fleeting moment of illicit power. She spent her prime years looking over her shoulder in isolated Spanish villages, missing birthdays, weddings, and funerals. The billion-pound scheme brought her temporary luxury, but it cost her everything that truly mattered. Now, serving 17 years behind bars, she has nothing but time to reflect on the price of her ambition.